It will forever be a real mystery, really, to me. I say, quote, mystery in in quotation marks, as to why some people seriously do think that somehow a Reform UK government and making Nigel Farage the Prime Minister would somehow be a really good idea, especially people from the working class who say this and are really almost happy and excited by this, when you only have to look at past statements from Nigel Farage or other people in Reform UK. They are not, and I repeat, not on the side of people from the working class. They are on the side of million and billionaires. And if anything, Farage's new policy, again, which we'll get into because I think it's policy in the loosest term, would be generally and should be seen as what it is. It would be an absolute billionaire bonanza. It would be a tax wealth exemption for the wealthy that would basically be absolutely they would have to pay pretty much next to nothing for them, as you'll see in a moment, but in return they would be able to accrue billions. Like, Farage is asking them to pay peanuts for what would be an increase to them in untold billions. And the crux of all this is that, guess what, guys? You little people, lucky you, we're going to use that money, which is again a one-off payment. So how on earth is this going to last or even be sustained? You're going to get a payment ranging from £100 to £600. Lucky you. Again, I do not see how this intends to be sustained because there are only so many rich people in the world. Not only that, what happens when they all paid it, and then what? What happens to those payments then? Not only that, but the number of tax this would lose to the HMRC. How would this end up paying for services and all kinds of stuff? Yeah. If Farage ever gets in, he's going to make an absolute mess of things. And to be honest, maybe that's what should just happen at this point. You know, teach these people a lesson. Oh, you thought Farage was going to be good? Let's put him in and see what happens, shall we? Because I don't see things going well at all if he ever gets in charge. So, as always, before we do go continuing into this, please do remember to click the like, share, and subscribe button down below. Of course, there is my Patreon page, the one of today's link where you can buy me coffee. When thank you very much to all those people who do go buy me coffee, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there is the Pony Club down below as well, the YouTube membership button. And of course, it is Wednesday, so there will be a YouTube membership video going out to them, and of course, the Patreon members out as well. So look out for that as well. So let's crack on then into this. This coming from The Guardian with the title of Billionaire Bonanza. Labour derides the reform plan to offer tax exemptions to the wealthy. So Nigel Farage has now defended his plans to attract wealthy individuals to the UK with a £250,000 fee for 10 years of residency and a special tax regime that Labour has now called a billionaires bonanza. And as this has basically been come to see, like £250,000 to these wealthy people they're trying to attract is nothing. For like 10 years of pretty much tax-free living in the UK, what does that go on to achieve? This is trickle-down economics in the extreme of, oh, you don't understand. If they live in the UK, then they're going to use that money to spend here in the UK. This has been the biggest con being sold to these people for years. And these reform people who are voting for this, who think this is somehow a good idea, are swallowing the lie hook, line, and sinker. In a press conference in London, Nigel Farage said that he wanted to win back every wealthy person leaving the country and encourage them to spend and create jobs in the UK. This isn't how you do it. You want to create jobs in the UK, government intervention, government investment is how you do it. Time and time again, that has been shown. That is how you do it. And Reform UK does not want to do that. Reform estimates, again, estimate should be in quotation mark, that 6,000 of now the wealthiest people would pay the fee to exempt themselves from the tax now on international earnings and inheritance tax. These proceeds would then be used to give a £600 dividend now to the lowest paid workers. Again, so what? These 6,000 wealthiest individuals pay £250,000 each, which is, again, nothing to them. And how does that be regenerated? Because it looks like they're basically paying this one-off fee. But do they pay it again in 10 years' time? None of this makes sense at all. Farage was, of course, accompanied by two of his wealthiest donors and party's officials, the chairman of the unit chief, Zia Youssef, the treasurer, Nick Candy, who has spoken now of trying to attract wealthy business people from Monaco to give money to reform. However, Daniel Needle, a tax expert, suggesting the policy would cost the UK over £350 billion over 5 years now in just lost revenue, highlighting now the tax gap left and arguing that you would now not get a high take-up, especially as no government could actually guarantee a policy would be in place for 10 years. Exactly. What's to stop them losing the next election, the next government going, yeah, that's a really dumb idea because, we're losing £350 billion in lost revenue. Yeah, we're just going to, undo that. Farage went on to reject the analysis as, quote, nonsense. How is it nonsense? That's exactly right in many ways. So many more questions should be asked about all this in this. Reform UK sources are, of course, saying that those paying the £250,000 quote landing fee would, of course, still pay tax on any UK earnings, just not overseas gains. Yeah, I'm sure they would. But again, still, that is billions of pounds worth of tax they are not paying. Billions of pounds worth of tax they are not paying. Ellie Reeves, the Labour chair, said this was quite simply now a bonanza now for billionaires. Not only is now a complete golden giveaway to the rich, but experts also warn this will now leave a massive black hole in the country's finances that working people will now left be paid to pick up the bill for. Farage said that he thought Labour would end up adopting the policy to now stem the flow of wealthy people leaving the UK. Others have suggested it's a, quote, Robin Hood tax and tax redistributing wealth. But the Reform leader said, we are not stealing from the rich. We are trying to encourage them to come here. And this is it. This is where you get these over-optimistic individuals saying, oh, no, you don't understand. This is a Robin Hood tax. This is what Farage has said. It's a Robin Hood tax. Isn't he so great and wonderful, guys? No, Farage said nothing about that. This is what really shocks me, is that you get stuff that Nigel Farage says like this, which is a complete, as we said, giveaway to billionaires. And then you get some reform people who turn around and say, oh, that's a Robin Hood tax. He's going to take from the rich and give to the poor. Farage said nothing of the sort, but somehow there's this disconnect between somehow what Nigel Farage says and what some reform UK people hear, which is really strange, but there you go. Reform, of course, estimates that this, quote, Britannia workers' dividend, again, I don't see how this is going to be able to continue or how it will work, could provide a tax-free annual payout of £600 to £1,000 to roughly £2.5 million low-paid full-time workers, depending now on the uptake. Again, depending on the uptake. The money, of course, would be delivered directly by HMRC at the end of each tax year. In effect, Reform UK is proposing to sell exemption now from the UK tax system, reinstating now the abolished non-dom privileges in a very simplified form, but with a cash price now attached. Again, getting rid of the non-dom privilege was good. Why are you wanting to bring this back in a form of again selling it now? But oh look, you lowly ones, you get this free Britannia workers dividend. Aren't you lucky? Meanwhile, of course, billionaires are taking in probably just 600 probably times that amount in an hour of you getting £600. Again, it is nonsense, absolute nonsense on this. The party said that this is not the says that the fee is, quote, not a golden visa. It absolutely is a golden visa, but simply try to ensure wealthy newcomers immediately contribute to British society. Why not just make sure they pay their taxes then? What are we missing on that? Anyway, unlike, of course, Labour's 2024 abolition of the non-dom status, the shift now under former Tory Chancellor Jeremy Hunt to now a residence-based tax system for all new arrivals. Reform plan would obviously restore tax breaks now for the globally mobile, while simultaneously trying to claim to deliver for the British working class. Under its now lowest uptake scenario, 6,000 exemptions just a year, the scheme would generate 1.5 billion, enough to fund the 600 pound tax-free break bonus for 2.5 million workers. A higher uptake scenario with over 10,000 cards would, of course, be 2.5 billion and deliver £1,000 for each worker. Only full-time workers, the bottom 10% of the income distribution, would, of course, qualify. And payments would now be automatically issued via HMRC. Again, that is not going to work. That is not going to get anything at all. It is such a nothing giveaway, to try and tempt people that, oh, this is such a good idea. I'm sorry, that is nothing. That is absolutely nothing to the kind of money that those people are generating. If you want them to contribute to British society, why should they not just pay their fair share of tax? Again, and you would get far more money from that. Anyway, Reform said that this would now boost disproportionately benefit workers now in Wales and Scotland and the northeast of England, regions where, of course, the greatest share of jobs now pay at the bottom decline. Well, how about, I don't know, finding ways to boost that and bringing in policy that would improve that for those workers? I don't see you doing that. Anyway, the party has, of course, yet to actually clearly publish a clear threshold for who would qualify as a high net worth newcomer, nor how the policy would actually be enforced or integrated into HMRC's tax framework. No legislative draft has been released. So this is just an idea that they're throwing out into the wind, see if it works, and basically seeing who they can fool, essentially, on that one. Since sweeping into power more than 670 council seats back in May, taking control of 10 councils, 2 mayoralties, Reform now has emerged as a serious national contender. The party now leads in multiple polls, with recent polls showing that Reform on 34%, with Labour trailing at 25%. And Conservatives at just 15%. This move is, of course, part of Farage's now latest attempt to try and position Reform as a party for working people, not through traditional wage policies or trade unionism, but via direct wealth transfers and very blunt fiscal symbolism. The Britannia Card is his clearest move yet to try and dominate, quote, the red wall on economic terms. And what would then happen to this? This would not help these people at all. There would be far, far better policies you could implement to help these people. This is basically nothing. Separately, of course, the reform leader said that Israel and the US now were right to attempt to try and destroy Iran's nuclear capability by bombing it. He also tried to accuse the Attorney General, Richard Halmer, of being, frankly, quote, bordering on treacherous now for striking a deal to hand ownership of the Chagos Island to the Mauritius. Again, that wasn't him. That was the Conservative government. There was international law backing that up, but there you go. And, of course, at least the military base there, claiming now is now hindered US bombing now against Iran. They've got far more other bases that they could use, but there you go. None actually support, of course, the UK joining military action on Iran. Farage said, I doubt they're going to ask for our help, but they could do with our support. Again, that idea would be terrible. In the long run, that would be an absolutely terrible and awful idea. That would basically deprive billions now from HMRC, as you saw there, like 35, 35 billion, I think it was estimated there. Yeah, 35 billion just in 5 years of lost revenue, giving you nothing. There is no plan behind that. It is just done. to say, oh, look, aren't we populist? Now, of course, this is what Farage wants to do. He's sort of given the game away here. Um, Farage has always played at the edges while trying to want to get something. Of course, what he wants to do is he wants to bring back the non-dom status, but he wants to do it without looking like the absolute entitled, privileged person that he is that would benefit wealthy people. He wants to say, oh, look, you can bring back the non-dom status, but with this thing. And it's a, and again, of course, many of these reform people hear this as a quote Robin Hood tax. Again, that's not how a Robin Hood tax would work at all. But there you go. This would not help. This would not help at all. There are far, far better policies you could bring in that would help the lowest working people. Like, I don't know, making sure that they've got, good, worker protection. But of course, Farage and Reform constantly voted against that type of stuff, personally spoken out against unions. Not going to raise minimum wage. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if Farage comes out in not too distant future and tries to cook up a scheme to lower minimum wage while trying to sell it as some sort of benefit to, I don't know, working class people. Anyway, but there you go. So, as always, let me know what you think about all this. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.